Well, it turns out you just have to give the gamers what they want and they will come and support your game. And that's what we're seeing with The Dispatch, a new game from Ad Hoc Studios from ex-Telltale game developers that are producing something that gamers are responding to. And I think it comes from the desperate situation where you have to make something of quality or your studio won't exist. And that's what we're often seeing from indie developers that are breaking away from these gigantic studios. This studio system that has become corporatized and focused on things outside of what is important, and that is making quality video games. And I think when you look at what happened to Telltale Games itself, the studio that birthed a lot of the developers that are working on this game, you kind of have a realization they're coming from a place where that was something that was lost in the production process. If you don't know anything about Telltale Games, it was one of the biggest studios that came out in the early 2000s and was one of the most successful studios in the 2010s, producing a lot of content on story-based decision-making video gaming. And I think that's the thing people loved about it. They had amazing titles like The Wolf Among Us, Batman, Game of Thrones, and so much other games that completely represented what the gaming and player base wanted from a storytelling apparatus in the gaming form. And that is the thing that sparked the love for Telltale Games and its studio. But the problem with that, they kind of lost their way in the production process, making games that were substandard to a certain extent and overproducing and just not having the quality and actual production costs to keep up with the amount of games that they were putting out there. And that led to the overall closure and shutting down and massive layoffs with the studio itself, even though it had some successful games still being released at the time, where people are still clamoring for a new Game of Thrones sequel that they actually produced. And I'm thinking, that's a situation you would want to be in if you're a successful studio. And I think being lost in this corporatized system that kind of started negating the inspirations for a lot of people within that system led to the development of what we're seeing right now with The Dispatch, where you have ex-Telltale Studio developers moving on and trying to make their own version of a Telltale game. And they did an amazing job because gamers are loving it. And it's kind of going back to the roots of actually providing what gamers actually want to see from a game, especially from a Telltale story game, where you're actually playing as an engaged character. And I think that's what we see with Robert, the main character and protagonist that you play in this game, where he reminds me of playing The Wolf Among Us and its main protagonist, where you feel engaged with this character, you feel connected with this character. And I think that is a thing that is often lost in modern day gaming, where it feels like you're disconnected from most characters. You can see this with most modern games right now, where they're kind of making you play as disconnected individuals that you don't really like as a personality. You already don't identify them as a gender, but you already make their personality grating and uninteresting. And I think that's the thing we consistently see with so much titles that have been coming out these past few years, where you play grating and annoying protagonists. And I think that's the thing gamers are tired of playing as. And I think when you play Dispatch, none of the characters are annoying, at least the main characters. I have some side characters, some YouTube personality characters that I don't really enjoy in this, but I think every other character, especially the main characters, are amazing. I like Aaron Paul playing as Robert. I like all the other actors that are playing the other characters. I think they're engaging, and I think they bring about a focus in the story that I actually love. And I think that's the thing a lot of people are enjoying about this game, where it feels like, hey, I like these characters, and I'm enjoying the things that they're doing with these characters and what they're producing, and especially all the romance and focus on the romance. And I think this is a thing we often don't really see in gaming anymore, in a lot of Western entertainment, where romance is simply not the focus. And if there is a romance focus, it's kind of stripped of all the emotionality that you want to see from two people that are trying to romance each other. But when you look at the relationship between Blonde Blazer and Robert, or Visigal, it has this charm and uniqueness that we kind of miss out in modern entertainment. I think that's the thing that is playing out right now, where I feel like, okay, these characters, I like these characters, and it's kind of difficult to choose the choices of between which character you want to be in a romantic relationship, which is usually something that is not happening in most video games. You really don't care about the romantic relationships. The best romantic choice options we ever seen was probably Final Fantasy with Aerith and Tifa. And that is a thing that we don't really see redeveloped in modern gaming. Almost all the protagonists you hate, for the most part, especially from modern Western gaming, they don't know how to make a character that is likable anymore, whether it's the protagonist, whether it's the female love interest. And I think that's the thing a lot of gamers are kind of irritated and perturbed with. And I think that's the situation that's often playing out within the gaming industry today, where gamers are just really perturbed with the character choices and the individuals you have to actually play as within the gaming environment. And I think that is a sad state of affairs for a lot of gamers, and Dispatch kind of brings some relief to the situation where it feels like, okay, I like all of these characters and they're interesting and engaging. I don't want to see these characters and their choices in the future. And that is playing out really well for the Dispatch because it's getting the numbers it needs. A lot of people are playing the game. A lot of people are streaming the game. And I'm happy for a new developer to actually have success while chasing the gaming audience and making something that is palatable to them. And I think that's the thing that we're seeing with this game. They made a game that is charming, interesting, palatable to the gamer and player base, and it can actually win people over with its charm. And I think that's the thing that we see with additional episodes coming out, where it's staying consistent. And I think that is the thing I miss from gaming and just entertainment in general, where people are staying consistent with the value proposition that they're giving the gamers. They're saying they offer the gamers this sort of storytelling and choice mechanism where they get involved with the superhero world. They have romance options, and it's not trying to subvert your expectations, at least so far. I know people gonna say, hey, they're subverting your expectations. They have kisses and LGBTQ stuff. I'm like, it's not really that serious, at least for this game. It's not carried out in that way where it's supposed to be some representation icon. I think that's the thing I'm annoyed with modern gaming the most, where everything is a representation of a modern day political movement. I'm like, I don't really care about this. And I don't think that's the case here. It feels like everyone is natural to their own personality and attributes. And I think that is the thing that we often don't really see in modern gaming, where everyone's natural to their modern attributes and personality types. And they're making unique individuals. They're not representation icons. They just simply represent an idea. That's what we see in modern gaming, people representing ideas rather than themselves. And I think with this game, it feels like everyone is representing an individual character that is unique to their own personality. Even the characters that are evil, that you hate, that are clearly maybe flamboyant and have these other personality traits that are usually identified as annoying in gaming, they're okay because it feels like this is naturally them. And I think that is the thing that is impressive about Ad Hoc Studios and the Dispatch. Who knows, it might become trash in the future, but so far it hasn't become trash to me. It seems like it's okay. And I like the main protagonist, which is something that doesn't happen too often. I like this guy. I like how he maneuvers himself and how he talks, and he reminds me of the Wolf Among Us to a certain extent. So I'm excited for the future of this game. It might become trash, and plus I don't like some of the YouTube character voices. I'm like, these guys are terrible at it, but that's my only gripe with this game. But if you give the players what they want, they will come. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. The players are coming in support of this, and I'm happy for the developer for actually producing content that gamers can actually acknowledge, enjoy, and really delve into. Seems like we've been getting a lot of games like this that are kind of striking a perfect balance between, hey, we have our own feeling and style, but we want to make something for the gamers. And I think that is the thing that we're seeing right now with our creators, with Dispatch, where yeah, they have some things that people might identify as modern issued gaming tropes that are trying to maybe standardize these ideological trends, but I think they're more focused on making a good game. And I think that's what I see here with the Dispatch, and of course so few other titles that are coming out nowadays. But that is just my 2 cents on the situation. Maybe you disagree with me. Tell me what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.